So, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel on this rather grey, overcast, and actually somewhat cold grey Tuesday afternoon. It seems like the weather is being a little bit more miserable today, which has a break in just constant sunny weather all the time. Um, but much like the weather, I suppose the Manchester United fan base is kind of feeling a bit grey as well, and I'm sort of feeling a bit grey about the whole situation myself. Don't feel like I have that much energy to want to have to discuss this, constantly over and over and over again. But it's an issue that is somewhat just not going away, and by the looks of it, it's not going to go away for a good several months yet. Um, but yes, as indicated by the title of this video, the Manchester United headache. So, in life, right, you'll get different sorts of headaches. You'll get the throbbing headaches. You'll get the sort of somewhat annoying headaches that are like there, but it's not enough to make you really sort of, keel over and die. But it's just that sort of annoying little headache that you're just like, oh, is it worth taking some paracetamol though? Is it worth taking some drugs or something just to null the pain a bit, to make it sort of go away for a bit? There's all sorts of different headaches, and categorically, you might as well add the new category of headache into this mess called the Manchester United headache, which is a headache where it's just like, it's so obvious what you can do to avoid getting this headache, but it's everyone else that's, bringing this headache on. It's everyone else that works for this club at boardroom level and above up to the ownership that really does it brings on this headache, which you can see it. It's like you can see it coming from a mile away, but it's just you can't do anything to stop it. You want it to stop before it gets any closer to you, but it just keeps getting closer and closer and starts to encapsulate you, and just you feel restricted, like you can't feel as happy or as joyous as you want to feel about your football club, because that's the thing about sports, and supporting a football team should give you a sort of uh, a release from reality, as it's an escape from the mundane, everyday life that people from all backgrounds will experience, like the escape from the Monday to Friday office 9 till 5 job or something. It's supposed to bring you joy and excitement and great anticipation on some exciting days ahead. But for some reason, this club, along with perhaps a few others in the world of football, are doing a very, very good job. They're doing a really, really good job, an excellent job. But what job is it they're doing? The job they're doing is to actually depressing this fan base and finding new ways and new levels of achieving absolute disappointment through and through. They're finding new ways of doing it. They're finding new ways. They're using old reliable ways. They're doing all sorts of different things to find as many levels of depression and disappointment for this Manchester United fan base. And the thing is even on the journalistic front, right, with your likes of your Fabrizio Romanos, like your Samuel Luckhurst, or people in that sort of field, right, because they're not really tied to any of our clubs, you'd expect them to not really care too much about it. But honestly, even they are just like, well, this isn't fair. This is ridiculous. This is stupid. Fans of other clubs look at our situation. They go, well, that's a stupid situation. It's bad, but more importantly, it is stupid. It's a really stupid situation. And the best things that we can do is we can't even sit there and say or try and defend our club with honour. No, we're sat here with our hands tied, saying, yeah, no, we agree with you. We agree with you 100%. 100% we agree with you because that's what's real about our club. We can't sit there and, make up uh, a fantasy story that all is right with the world, and Manchester United were like this golden, temple of where all everyone's dreams, hopes and dreams come true. That it's a fantasy. Everything's a fantasy, but seriously, the reality of this club, its immediate future, is nothing but absolute depression. And I think there's a few things that I think summarize just in small key points that really summarize it. But the overall picture, the bigger picture as to what we see right here, right now, that I think just culminate all of these different smaller factors that sort of puzzle this picture together. And once you see the full picture, it's just like, how has it ever managed to get to this stage? And maybe it is just the case that, in terms of, or in respect to the sale, you say, well, things will have to get worse before they get better. And in some walks of life, you could say that that's probably the term that you'd want to use, or that's the politically correct term to use in this instance. That the Glazers are just really sticking the knife in the back before they do take their leave. Maybe that's something to take note of. Maybe they are deliberately screwing the club over as their last gesture, and can't even call it a goodwill gesture because there's nothing good about it. But along with that, a few other bits of information. I mean, just as a summarization, not for the ownership, but in the instance of the board and how poor that our board has been for the longest time. Got here that's been reported by Samuel Luckhurst, right? And again via the United Stand Twitter feed. Do be sure to follow them to keep up to date with the information live from your ends as well. But this was said by Samuel Luckhurst as regards to Moises Caicedo, right? So MUFC's discussion about Moises Caicedo in the January 2021 transfer window were compromised by the involvement of various intermediaries. A source said the deal became too messy for United to proceed. He then goes on by saying this here. When MUFC passed on Moises Caicedo, a club source bullishly claimed the money could be saved and spent on another target. Now, this was when Moises Caicedo was valued around about £5 million, thereabouts. And we passed the opportunity up, and supposedly Luckhurst, with an inside scoop, has apparently said, well, at the time that this happened, someone from the club at boardroom level had allegedly said that they could save money and that it wasn't worth the hassle for this transfer. And I'm thinking, but that's just a single instance. It makes you wonder just how many more of these transfers that could have been. And I mean, I suppose with the topic of discussion on what could have been with all the players that we have been linked to over the years, and basically what players we could have signed but didn't. And it makes you think that if Moises Caicedo fits into that category, but the diagnosis of that failed transfer was that someone said at boardroom level, we can save that money and spend it on someone else. Well, at that point, who was that money spent on? Who was that money spent on? If perhaps you need to look into the archives of the January transfer window of 2021, to see who it was. In fact, we're going to try it now. See if that money was actually supposedly spent during that transfer window. Signings 2021. So, da, 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 da. So supposedly, we only had one player come in during the January transfer window of 2021. We only had one player come in. Any guesses to who that is? Amad Diallo. Amad Diallo. The player, by the way, that this summer is being linked with another loan move out from the club. The fee we paid Atalanta for Amad Diallo, who, by the way, is still getting loaned out to this day, was £19 million plus add-ons. And we didn't go and complete a deal for Moises Caicedo at that point because the deal was too complicated. So we passed up Moises Caicedo in favour of signing a youth player from Atalanta to whom we are just consistently loaning out because we keep saying, but he's probably not ready yet. Well, look at Moises Caicedo. Was he not ready back then? Because he sure as hell is ready now, but Amad Diallo isn't ready now. I mean, we had a lot of loans going out that January as well. The fact that we signed only one player, and that's been the feat of that has been the feat of Manchester United transfer windows in January. If you like, under any and all circumstances, please, please, please do not spend any money in January. Do not spend any money because that's the window we save money. And as allegedly suggested here by Samuel Luckhurst, that people are telling those in charge of transfers, don't spend the money on players that could be good. Save it for other targets. So that's the club ethos. That's a club ethos. If a player you could get on cheap, you could get a player on the cheap. You get him cheap, but don't spend the money on him. Save it for another target that you end up not spending in the January transfer window. It's like the last January transfer window. I remember it with Ralf Rangnick. We had a couple of signings we could have made for probably less than 30 million in January transfer window. So even if a club doesn't like spending money in January, even for a club that doesn't like spending in January, 30 million is not that much. 30 million is not that much. We could have had Dennis Zakaria. And I think Julian Alvarez was another name that was available at the time because Man City went and pre-negotiated the contract and then they ended up signing him. So then we had Julian Alvarez come into Manchester City. So they did the transfer we should have done, and then Chelsea did the transfer that we should have done also. See, Ralf Rangnick actually had the best interests of this club at heart. He did have the best interests, even though he was a manager at the time. And unfortunately for him, his managerial record was, less than impressive. But I didn't care I didn't care about it. Even if we lost every game under Ralph Rangnick, I didn't care about what he was going to do for us as a manager. I only really cared about what he would do for this club in a position of power, genuine power. Because what it would have done is it would have just changed the landscape of the whole club. Because we're stuck with someone who is scared about overpaying, because if he does overpay for any transfer targets, he would be going against his word. He would be going against his word for this summer, that he's not going to be taken for a fool, that he's not going to overspend, that he's not going to let Manchester United be fleeced by other clubs. But you're trapped in that cycle, but you're not clever enough to get yourself out of it. And that's not just in terms of, to John Murtough, that's to everyone on the Manchester United board. But the only person who was clever enough was disrespected, stabbed in the back, and then sacked. He was alleged. He was supposedly sacked, and that sums it up. You know, everyone's got this vicious little circle where everyone grooms each other and says, "Oh, you're really good at your job." So I can imagine it. They've got their own little group, their own little group chat that they keep bigging each other up. They keep telling each other, "Oh, you're doing a fantastic job. Don't worry about what everyone's saying about you." They're hysterical. The fans are hysterical. Don't worry about what it is that they're saying. But the problem is that they're so disillusioned with what's actually happening, by what's factually happening in front of them, that it's like they'll only consort with each other. But when someone it's like if you've got a group of people, right, who have an issue with making themselves feel bad about themselves, right? But a group of people, but they only consort to each other, where it's like, oh no, I can completely understand why you're making yourself feel a lot worse about yourself. But then you get an actual professional, a medical professional will come in and sits inside that group and says, well, you're making yourself feel worse because of this, you're making yourself feel worse because of that. And he's literally just diagnosing every single problem with that group, every single problem. And a plotted roadmap as to how to get themselves out of those situations, a tried, proven, tested method to get better. But everyone's just like, nah, that's stupid. That's stupid. You're undermining us. You're making us feel stupid. So we're going to get rid of you. So then the cycle just goes back to square one. So nothing gets fixed. We're still back in the trenches. The problems of yesteryear will only repeat themselves, as well as then introducing new problems. No one's fixing anything at this club as it stands. Ten Hag is literally the outsider that is yet to be kicked out. Essentially, like, think of it like that. Ten Hag is yet to be kicked out. He is the outsider, right, of competence that is dealing in a world of incompetence. And the second that it is the second, right, that if, let's say, this board, nothing changes at this club, the second that Ten Hag's competence starts really putting a terrible, terrible light on everyone else's incompetence, they will get rid of him, because they've got to protect their jobs. That's what I mean. That's the thing. That's the feeling at the club, that everyone is terrified, petrified of losing their jobs. But that's the reality, because they know that the Glazers' incompetence allows them to be incompetent and stay in their positions of power with their incompetence, because their jobs are not at risk. But the problem is, for them, is remove the incompetent owners and stick competent owners in there straight away. The toxicity in that boardroom, at boardroom level, will be flushed out, and will be flushed out so unbelievably fast, because it's as clear as day. For people who don't work in the same offices as them can tell how bad of a job they're doing. So then you're going to get people who are going to go step inside of those offices and see how bad a job they're doing. They'll get rid of them within a week. I've seen it with some reports that there's supposedly some 60 or like a 6 month trial period, or like was it a 30 week or something, a trial of just to test this board's abilities, to see if they are worth it, to see if they should back this board. I don't think they would last past a week. I don't think they will last past a week. The second new owners come in, that's it. Week later, gone. All of them. Every single one. They shouldn't last longer than a week. Because people who don't actually know who these people are on a personal level, and who don't know them on a professional level, the fact we can tell how bad of a job they're doing, well, the second someone who knows how bad of a job they're doing goes and sees it for themselves, they'll be gone within the week. So the sooner, and this is what's crazy, is even if the Glazer ownership, stays on and they keep taking dividends out of the club and all of that, even with that, if you've got a competent board, we'd still be successful. We would still be successful. Because Cole, we've not got a bucket load of money to spend like a Manchester City do, or like say how a Newcastle could have really, really soon. Cool, we wouldn't have that sort of level of money, but the way that the club behaves, the way that the board would behave, the integrity that this board would have to actually doing business that is genuinely for the good of this club, you can't understate it. Because we would still be challenging for titles every year. We would still be challenging for FA Cups easily. We would still be challenging in the Champions League every year. But that's the problem. We've got an incompetent ownership plus an incompetent board. And now we've got a competent manager. That's like the holy trinity that you need for a club to be ultimately successful and dominant. You need that holy trinity. You need the right manager, you need the right board setup, and you need the right ownership to absolutely outright dominate. Well, not just with those three key elements. What you also need is a competent fan base, a fan base that does not take no for an answer, a fan base that demands that their club be successful. You see, a protest cannot remove ownership. A protest could remove board members from this club. It could. There is a chance of it. There is potential. I mean, think about how big of an issue, or how big of a problem it was for the club when it came out that fans went and found Ed Woodward's house and protested outside of it. And how everyone was just like, we had people saying, oh no, that's disgraceful, that's disgraceful. People are doing it in Spain every single year. People are doing it in France every single year. I'm sure people are doing it in Portugal every single year. And if it got bad enough in Germany, I'm sure people in Germany would be doing it every single year. I'm sure they would. I think Schalke was the last example where there was a massive just uproar from fans. But apparently it's completely unacceptable and disgraceful for a CEO that has absolutely disgraced the Manchester United Football Club in all of its entirety. It's completely disgraceful that people go find his house and protest outside of it. But this is the thing: the people that protest in the other countries are usually protesting with their bigger clubs, and when they're met with pressure like that, the club acts. The club always acts. So why don't we? It's just not. I feel as though there's a pressure on the board that's missing. I mean, the initial collapse of the Super League meant that Ed Woodward was like, "Well, no, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to go." So Ed left. Ed disappeared. So what happens if you put pressure on Richard Arnold? Would he leave as well? Possibly. Put pressure on John Murtough, he would leave. Anyways, I've also got an update here. Perfect, absolutely perfect. Just to continue rolling with the gut punches to the Manchester United supporters. MUFC and Chelsea are prepared for direct contact this week to make a final decision on the Mason Mount deal. Talks will take place within 24 to 48 hours to understand how to proceed. Why? Why? So you've already... Yeah, there you go, John Murtough. That's John Murtough for you. John Murtough / Richard Arnold. That right there from Fabrizio Romano sums it up. You left the final offer on the table and you said, look, we are not going to accept, we're not going to bid any more than that. So you can either accept our bid or we're not going to sign the player. We're going to go elsewhere and going to do business that we need to do. But once again, the pressure for John Murtough and Richard Arnold, they've caved in to the pressure. They've given in. And so Mason Mount becomes top of the cards again, top priority. And I think the thing is as well is where I believe that Moises Caicedo should be the priority over Mason Mount, and that you should just pay whatever the hell it is that Brighton want for Caicedo, because that's a priority position. That is a priority position because the club can't. This team that we have cannot progress without that issue being addressed. Can't progress. Cannot progress because we're not improving in the key areas. But this is the thing. Manchester United say, well, we're going to focus on Moises Caicedo now. Okay, then where's the bid? Seriously, this is what people don't really take enough notice of. If a club is genuinely serious about a player, they're interested, they'll start talks within 24, 48 hours, right? Within 24 to 48 hours, they will materialize a bid with structure, with everything that they want. Most clubs who are serious tend not to find any need to complicate a structure of a bid by any means. So they just pay outright. They just pay outright. Pay upfront, outright, full package deal, right there. And they'll sort it out. That like they will force clubs to make a decision on their players that they're selling. They'll force decisions. Manchester United have supposedly it's been put out there that Manchester United will now focus on some other midfield targets, like Moises Caicedo was apparently reported at the top of the list of alternative targets, and no bid's been submitted. Apparently there's going to be a bid for player plus cash for Declan Rice. Apparently that they're going to try and get involved in a three-way battle. But the problem is it had been reported. Now, this was featured on the morning show on the United Stand with Mark Goldbridge this morning. How on earth are you going to have the bottle to tell a club like West Ham that have got near hundreds of millions of pounds worth of bids waiting, right, to be considered or to be accepted or rejected? Why should they wait for Manchester United to go to a classroom and create this amazing project of Sign Declan Rice, the Sign Declan Rice project, and they're going to structure this bid in all of these different ways and paint this beautiful picture, and then they're going to display this artwork to West Ham and say, "Look at our bid! Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it a beautiful bid? Fantastically beautiful bid. We feel that you should accept this one." And lo and behold, West Ham would probably be looking at a bid of about £30 million plus someone like Brandon Williams or something. And West Ham will say, well, actually, we're not going to reject your bid because you're wasting our time with potentially doing business with other clubs that are actually more serious than you. We're actually going to tell you, do not try and bid for our players because we are suspending all negotiations with you for any player, for any reason. Even if you want to sell a player to us, we don't care. Do not offer a player to us. We are closing and blocking communication with you. Seriously, I'm surprised that not more clubs have tried to do that with United. I'm going to be completely honest, because it seems to be that's what we always do, is we waste time. We waste other people's time. So, we are as big of a joke as the media reports say we are. We are as discredited as our reputation suggests. Seriously, some of the biggest waste of spaces in the football world. Exclusivity has not been granted to Sheikh Jassim, contrary to a report on June 15th by Samuel Luckhurst, which is probably referring to the Reuters or the Reuters. I think it's Reuters. So Reuters apparently said on June 15th, I think they said it was to do with that Sheikh Jassim or that Rain Group was negotiating exclusivity with Sheikh Jassim, which I said, well, they've not granted it, and it's a chance that they just don't grant exclusivity for anyone. But the thing is everyone's still saying, but they're not granting exclusivity. Well, no, there was no report that ever said that they had granted exclusivity. They said that there was talks about exclusivity. So it's like if I talk about me being a billionaire, and then someone comes out and says, "Oh, Will's been made a billionaire." No, I haven't. I haven't been made a billionaire. I'm just talking about being a billionaire. Doesn't mean I am. Probably never will. I'll never. I'll say it right here, right now. I don't think I'll ever be a billionaire. Even in, even if I chose every correct decision in my life from here on out, I probably would never be a billionaire. Even if I could see the roadmaps on how to become billionaires, I probably wouldn't have enough of a fortune, or wouldn't be fortunate enough to make myself a billionaire. So they talk about the Reuters, report being rubbish and all of that. It's literally just people just taking things out of context, basically. I'd also seen apparently that what was it here? Samuel Luckhurst against suggestion has been that for MUSC board members, accountants, lawyers, and advisors, it would be logical to delay any announcement of a sale of the club until after June 30th, which would mark the end of the fourth quarter of 2023. But why the hell are people trying to structure and time announcements of a process that everyone wants to have done as soon as possible? Why would that make any sense? It's like, it sounds like to me like someone who is fleecing everyone. It's like if I'm the owner of Manchester United currently and I'm selling the club and I'm telling people who work for me, who work for my club, well, I want to release uh, bits of information on this date and bits of information on that date, and I want to time it just so it coincides with this happening. What good is that going to do me? It's like, what good is that going to do me? If unless there's an underlying plan that's going to make me an extra billion on selling a club, why do I feel it's necessary to be plotting dates as to when to announce something? Why not announce it as soon as it's materialized? As soon as fiction becomes fact, as soon as fiction becomes fact, why not announce the facts once it's materialized or at the time that it's materialized? Why not do that? Like, see, and this is the thing, they do it with the player announcements as well. It's all just the whole PR machine working in overdrive. It's the PR machine completely in overdrive. I just can't, like, it is so frustrating, and all the things I want to say, like, part of me just wants to absolutely, rip shit up on camera and just absolutely make things personal with people like John Mercer and Richard Arnold. Like, a part of me wants to do that, but the other part of me has to be, more logically thinking and trying to just sort of withhold half of withhold half of my language that perhaps would get me cancelled. Like, I could probably delve that far, that deep, and put myself in that much hot water. Like, I could end up doing that, but I've got to hold myself back. I've got to slow myself down and think more clearly and more logically. But it's just seeing that each and every action or course of action that this club and this board has taken in all of the processes from transfers to the club sale does not make any sense as to why you would do it. Doesn't make any sense. From the Mason Mount bid, or Mason Mount being the priority, regardless of whether Ten Hag wants to prioritise that player or not, based off of the politics on that deal, right, or the finances on that deal, and the ethos that the board has allegedly said as regards to player valuations and all of that, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. We're not going to overpay, but in order to sign anyone, we have to overpay. Right, so by your logic, you're not signing any players. 0 players are coming into Manchester United this summer. 0 players. Absolutely nobody. A bit like the total amount of transfer fees paid in January. So you could only loan players. You didn't want to buy anyone. No, you're going to loan players in. And not loan world-class players or anything like that. No, you're going to loan washed-up players who no one in this fan base wants to see at this club. So how you're approaching transfers doesn't make sense. Then the club sale with the endless amounts of bids and not actually saying, well, it's like, this is the annoying thing, is I'm pretty sure that by way of logic, there's only one person realistically in the race or in the running to buy Man United, that's Sheikh Jassim, logically speaking. But we will see if this process on selling the club had any fabric of logic to it. Because otherwise, like, I don't think there is a word to actually describe how stupid and how low IQ the Glazers would actually be if they choose the least logical bid for the club. I mean, people will say, well, they'll only take the most amount of money, so if Sir Jim can offer them more money, but can he though? Can he actually offer them more money? Because it's like if they accept Sir Jim's bid of, oh well, 3 billion now, and I'll buy the rest of the club off of you at higher prices in the future. Okay then, Sir Jim, what are you going to do out of your own pocket money? What are you going to do that guarantees that in the future for the Glazers? That guarantees that the Glazers are actually going to make more money, that you're going to buy out the rest of their shares in the future. And what are you going to do that's going to improve the club value tomorrow or next week or next month or next year? What are you going to do? Because everything that needs to be done costs billions upon billions upon billions. It will cost billions to really put this club back on the map, to put this club's values back on the upwards trajectory. You cannot afford to buy Manchester United Football Club in its entirety, which also means that you cannot afford to invest in this club. You can't afford to invest in this club. Sheikh Jassim can afford to buy the whole club, and he can afford to put all of the investment in full capacity. He can absolutely turn this club upside down, take it all apart, and stick it all back together again. He can do that. Sir Jim cannot do that. He can't do that. He can't afford it. So logically, even from the Glazers' perspective, logically, Sir Jim is falsely promising because he can't guarantee. Can't guarantee. And that's the thing. If you're falsely promising to someone, well, I'll buy this, the remaining shares off of you at XYZ pricing. Well, if the share price drops under Ratcliffe's ownership, good luck on actually getting your remaining 3 billion Glazers, Joel, Avram, whoever else keeps their shares. Good luck seeing your the remaining of your 6 billion. Good luck. Good luck. See, Sheikh Jassim's just going to offer you all the money right now, and you could take the guaranteed cash now. But you could fantasize that you're going to get paid the full amount, but it's going to be staggered payments. You're going to get payment now, you're going to get payment next year, and you get payment the year after. It's all wishful thinking, and any logical businessman wouldn't logically choose something based off a false promise. And it is going to be false promises, because that's the thing. Manchester United fans, they see right through the whole Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid. So if Ratcliffe's bid, and if Ratcliffe wins, if his bid and his takeover is not received well, that could ultimately kill Manchester United Football Club. It could, because I think the fan base would drastically shrink. I think it would. So then you don't get the same exposure, you don't get the same rate of interest in the club, you don't get the same level of engagement. Your average attendance with every passing season starts to drop and drop and drop and drop and drop. And it's just all of these numbers, all of the graphics, all the graphs start showing the downward trajectories in every department. It's not gonna crash the day after Sergio takes over. No. It could probably take 20, 30 years. But the graphs, they're going down. You're going towards shutting the doors of this club because the problems that need to be fixed, and this is the thing, this is the point, this is the moment in Manchester United's history where you either save the club or you start to see it die out. You start to see the decline, the inevitable decline. Look at the way that Sergeant Ratcliffe is running Nice. I mean, I've seen reports, people talking about, oh, well, Sergeant Ratcliffe, he's going to be investing back into Nice with the money that he had set aside for buying Manchester United. No, he's not. He absolutely is not. He could not care less about Nice. Sergeant Ratcliffe could not care less about Nice. He really couldn't. He absolutely could not. And this is the thing. The guy is spineless as well, because I remember when people interviewed before he met the Glazers initially, right? Before he met the Glazers, he was just like, "Oh, well, the Glazers and this club, they're spending stupid money." Right? So you're criticizing the Glazers and everything, but then you go and meet them, and then you have not a single bad word to say about them. Not a single bad word to say about them. Right. Cool. So, right. So we know that you're not serious then. We know that you're not being serious. See, if I want to see someone criticize the Glazers, I want to see them come out after a meeting and say, well, look, these people, they're as thick as pig shit. I want to see people still continue to criticize the Glazers after meeting them. I want to see that. But if it's seriously, you might as well say it's a bit like AFTV, for example. Before they would question the club, and the club would criticize AFTV, or people who were employed by the club would openly criticize AFTV. But then the people who would criticize AFTV now compliment them, and always, we've met with them, we've met with the boards and everything, Don Edu and all of that. Now AFTV changed their tune. They got on board with the same PR nonsense that the club posts out. They're on the same boat. They feel the same way. The feelings are mutual. So what happened? What happened? Sounds a bit like Sergeant Ratcliffe, He's so desperate to get a hold of his club, he's sold his soul to the devil. He sold his soul to the devil. He's spineless. He's completely spineless. Jesus Christ, I'm going to wrap this up now, because otherwise I'll be here forever and ever and ever. I'll try and push out another video later on today once I sort of get more clarity on other things happening with the club, with any transfers, or with anything to do with the club sale. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Whether you think everything's been taken out of whack, or whether you agree with some of the sentiments, whether you think that what this club is doing is acceptable, or whether you think everything about this club and its course of actions are a disgrace. Let me know what you think. Do be sure to drop a like and hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, and we'll be seeing you all again real soon. I'm going to go continue drinking my tea and chill out for a bit before I blow a gasket. Blow a gasket to end up in a casket.